Hey everyone, Tony Bristol here for I Am Cured, episode 2. So I hope you guys all enjoyed episode 1. Um, Learned a lot. Actually got some great coaching from my community, and I decided to, with episodes moving forward, I'm going to do them through Zoom and actually record the video also. So uh, we'll be placing the video on my YouTube channel so you can see different snippets. I'm not going to put the whole podcast, but you'll all be able to cut out some parts that I think are impactful and actually put those on YouTube for everyone to see. And you can actually see what I look like and, see my little sanctuary back here in my backyard where I love to hang out a lot. It's a very relaxing space for me, which you guys will be able to enjoy that also if you watch the YouTube portion of my podcast. So, first episode, I just want to first thank you all for listening. I think I'm close to 100 views or 100 listens of that first podcast. Hope to grow that over time, over 100. My goal is actually get to 1 million listeners of my podcast, and so I support you, and I thank all of you early adopters that have listened to my initial podcast. So with that, I want to head into what I'm going to talk about today. So there's actually 2 topics. The first topic is really what to do with news that you get during your journey that might not always be great news. So I'm going to share about some news that I got this week and share with you kind of how I worked through that and how I handled it. And then the second piece of it is how others in your life hear that news. Even though you might have an I am cured mindset, not everyone in your community might have that same mindset yet. So it's really about how you enroll your community in that mindset, because it's, as many of you know, it's not just about you, but it's about your community supporting you through your journey. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that and really that enrollment process and what occurred for me this week again. And so you can get an experience of really how I'm dealing with it. And hopefully that inspires you to, do something different and, or maybe look at your community and who you can enroll in that change mindset that you might have also. So anyways, with that, I'm going to jump into this week's episode. So for some of you who may not know, I was hospitalized about 2 months ago with a brain hemorrhage. So along with the cancer that I'm fighting, or that I'm working with, I also had a brain hemorrhage that kind of knocked me off my game for about a week. And basically how it came about was I was walking with a buddy outside, and I started like tripping over the curb and cracks in the pavement. And I was like, wow, something's not right here. So I ended up going into the hospital and getting checked out, and ended up admitting me and bring me down to a neurology center to have things checked out. And they noticed that I, through some MRIs and brain scans, they noticed that I actually had a 5-centimeter hemorrhage going on. So they admitted me right away. I spent 5 days in the hospital and had some follow-up. Basically what happened was it was in the left region of my brain, and it ended up knocking out a lot of my motor skills on the right side of my body. And luckily that only hung around for about a week. I was given a walker so that I could use that to kind of get around. So I used that for about 3 days after I got out of the hospital. And through the brain scans, they were concerned that I might have a brain tumor. And had a brain scan about a week and a half after I got out of the hospital, and nothing showed up on those initial brain scans. So I thought, oh, great, no brain tumor. It's unexplained why I had the hemorrhage. They can figure it out. But I was kind of like, okay, great, I'm on my way. Let's get through this. This was all before I really started generating this I am cured mindset and mentality. I was still in the, okay, this is going to be a struggle, but I'm going to get through this. I talked about this on the last episode about kind of being 95% sure that things were going to work out, but there was still that 5%, like, something could happen, and this could be the end, right? Well, after I developed that I am cured mindset, you know, I was really operating in like, I'm going to just get, this is easy. I'm going to cure this thing. And I've got to do some work. I've got to do some work with meditation. I've got to get my brain right. I've got to get, my mind in the right spot, but I've got this, right? So anyway, I ended up having a MRI 3 days ago. And later that day, I get a call from the neurology department of Swedish, which is the hospital that I do all my treatments through. And they were like, Dr. Gwynn wants to see you, or wants to schedule an appointment with you. Well, I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Something must not be right with the MRI, because usually if everything's okay, I get a little notification or a message, and on I go. But this was definitely something that I was like, okay, something's not right here. But he couldn't see me until 5 days later. In fact, I still have my appointment coming up with him. But luckily, my oncologist did give me a call the next day, and just, she's very amazing. Dr. Sharma is her name. And she let me know that they did find a small 0.6 of a centimeter, so 6 millimeter mass that was in my brain. And I'm so glad she called me to let me know, because I was a little concerned, I knew like something wasn't right, but she was awesome, and she gave me a call and kind of at least let me prep for it so I could ask the right questions, which is great. So what I do with information, this is my way of dealing with things, is then I go and I do a little research, and okay, what are my choices for care, right, for this? And there's definitely a few different ones. Obviously surgery, where they go in and can remove it. More invasive, where they have to cut in and surgically remove something. There's also other ways. One is this procedure called a gamma knife, where they shoot gamma rays in, and one gamma ray by itself doesn't do any good, but if you shoot 190 at one spot, it can remove that tumor. So anyway, so for about an hour, I was, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I was a little afraid, right? I mean, brain tumors, you hear about them, you hear about people who have them, hear about people that cure them without any surgery. So there's definitely that method also. In my healing journey, I like to mix not only Western medicine and also those procedures that follow with that, with also mindset healing. So that's my way of in my journey. Others like to go purely the mindset route, and that's cool, and I totally support that. And others like to go an alternative or Eastern medicine route, and totally support that. So I like to be an inclusion for wherever you're at, is perfect. And, your journey with your chronic illness, whether that be a cancer, whether that be, diabetes or Parkinson's or whatever it is, you need to feel comfortable with however you want to go through that healing journey. and however that is perfect. So anyway, getting back to my story. So I was presented with this information. I did a little research, got knocked off my game for about an hour, but after I had some information, I was back in that, you know what? This is perfect. God has blessed me with another challenge, with another hurdle that, allows me to deal with the uncertainty of a journey like what I'm on and what some of you who may be listening are on, of that things aren't always going to go the way that you think they're going to go. And you're going to hear things, you're going to be presented with opportunities, with challenges. And it's, who are you going to be in the face of those challenges? So with that, I actually, how I'm being with it is that this is just another speed bump that God has blessed me with. I will get through this. I will figure out the best procedure. I will look to God to help me with that decision, pray. And with that, I will be cured of not only a brain tumor, but also esophageal cancer and also some liver tumors that I have. So it's just one more thing to meditate on, to cure, to work with my wonderful care team, and to actually get through those different ailments that are inside of me that my body has created, but my mind will heal. So with that, it's a lot of times it's not just me that has to move through these different spaces, right? It's my community. So I've told a lot of my close friends and family about the brain tumor and all of that. And the good news is that it's small enough to where certain procedures can be done. And but what I noticed this week was, I had a quick call with my mom, and I let her know about the tumor. But what I also noticed, like once I hung up, was that even though I was okay with it, like I was like totally interacting with it powerfully myself, and I wanted her to be left with that, I could still hear the worry in her voice. And what that brought up for me was that your community might not be in that same mind space that you have, or that I have, right? Which is that I am cured mentality. And what there's to do about that is to be aware that like once I got off the phone with her, I could tell she was worried. I could tell that she was concerned. And even though that I was like in the space of like, I've got this, I'm going to move through this, I'm going to move to the other side, she might not have been there. And, after I got off the phone, I was talking with my wife about this, and she was saying like, yeah, there's still this uncertainty that I have, like when you get information like this, that I'm not fully there yet, right? I'm not where you are yet. And, even though, I might be in control of my own body and my mind and might be to the spot where it's like not a worry for me, my community might not be there, right? And it's kind of the first time that I looked outside and said, you know what? It's as important that you enroll your community in this mindset than it is yourself. Because if everyone else is like, oh, Tony's just full of it, man, he just thinks that he can cure himself. Like, I don't fully believe that, right? He's like in tough shape, like, oh, and the people might be like, oh, I'm so sorry. And you get all this like pity and concern. Sometimes it sounds like when you're dealing with something, right? And you're like, don't be sorry for me. I don't want that. Right. But it's hard because people don't know how to interact with, bad news like this, and however they interact is like them dealing with their stuff that they got to deal with when they get bad news, and they don't feel like they have any control over it either. And so it just had me really empathize with my community as I'm like rolling this information out. And it's something that I started thinking about and really inquiring with my wife about, like, how it's been for her as all this information has really rolled out. And like my hemorrhage, she felt really powerless with, right, because she couldn't even go to the hospital and sit with me, and I didn't communicate with her for a full day. And how she had a panic attack, about, like, is this potentially the end, or all that kind of stuff that your loved ones have to deal with during your journey. And I hope through this podcast today, those of you who are listening are either part of a community, or someone, or me, or you're dealing with something yourself, that this provides at least a different viewpoint or context to come from, which is it's as much about your viewpoint as it is about your community's viewpoint or mindset. And there might be some work to do, right? There's definitely some work for me to do with my own community as this message gets out, to really let them know that, like, yeah, I got you. I got you as much as you got me in this journey. And yeah, this might seem like bad news for a lot of you, that I've got a brain tumor that I got to deal with. But you know what? I seriously am not in a place where I'm concerned about it. Like, this is, again, God only gives me what I can handle, and I've got this, and He knows I got this. And really, for you guys all to support me in this is really to, if you have any concerns, reach out to me personally, especially in my community, and I'll talk you through it. But it really is something that, what I just request of my community is continue the prayers, continue the, reach outs, the comments, when I blog about something, I just love hearing from you, my community, and how you support me is perfect. And really, through all of this, that's all I want. Is I just want that back and forth, that love to keep flowing between, me and my community. And in the end, we get through this together, and we're going to get through this together. And I always give gratitude back to my community, because going through this alone would be a very tough journey. But you have all made it very easy for me to get through this. So how do you, that's just one example of how you enroll your communities. You include them. So you share about it, you authentically share about it. I shared that, that first hour was tough, but I worked through it how I worked through it. And each of you who have a chronic illness that gets some information that might not be the best at all times, you work through it how you work through it. Sometimes there's some crying involved. Sometimes there's some just sharing with a loved one about how it affects you. Sometimes you need to internalize it. How I've dealt a lot with pain and suffering in my life as I first internalize it, and I think about it a lot, and I look up information on the internet maybe, and I've got to figure it out before I can actually share authentically about it with someone else, right? So that's how I deal with it, right? But each of you deal with it how you deal with it, and you've got to distinguish how that is for yourself, and deal with that yourself. So anyways, with that, I'm going to end this week's podcast. I hope it was valuable. My wish, my prayers are that this message makes a difference for people. And as I move on with my message, I am going to start interviewing folks. In fact, my next podcast, I'm going to have my good friend Clay, who I actually met while doing an experimental therapy in Austria. And I mentioned him a little bit on my last podcast, but we're actually going to record it tomorrow and hopefully have it out in the next few days. And his story is amazing. Like I said, he chose a different path as far as his healing journey, which I love and I can't wait to share with you. But I also have another exciting guest that will actually happen here in the next week. And that guest is actually a boy that I actually coached in lacrosse. And I thought it would be amazing to have a kid's perspective of cancer. And his cancer that he actually has cured is with leukemia. And so I just can't wait for him to share his story and for you guys to all hear a kid's perspective on going through this, because it's very different than an adult's perspective. I mean, we've got all this baggage, you could say, that we've created in our life. But a kid's perspective is just so fresh and so new. And I really just love this guy and his courage and his strength and what he went through during his journey. So I'm looking forward to sharing that podcast when that one gets recorded. And really, I've got like 5 or 6 others that are just amazing stories also that are lined up. So I'm just really looking forward to sharing those with you. Other folks that I plan to have on my podcast is my pastor. He's just a wonderful man. And so I've got that on the docket, and just got a bunch of great messages coming up that I'm so excited about. And I'm just to let you guys know, I'm up to about 100 listens to my initial podcast, which I'm just excited about. I'm committed to getting up to 1 million listeners to each podcast. So consider you guys who have already listened to this, you're the early adopters to the I Am Cured podcast. And I just really appreciate each one of you that you took the time to really listen to this. And like I said, my commitment is that this makes a difference each and every time, and that people are inspired to take on something, whether they're inspired to, talk with the person they know who has cancer about, really being with them during this journey, or you have cancer or some chronic illness, and you're going to share with someone that maybe might not be in your mindset yet, but you're committed to them, bringing them with you through this journey and enrolling them in your current mindset, wherever that is. I'm just committed that these make a difference for everyone who listens to them. All right, with that, on my first episode, I just said peace out, but that's really not the authentic ending I want to leave you all with. Is really that I just love each and every one of you, and I'm just so appreciative that you're listening to this, and I just want to leave you with that I love you. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.